After Ruben Gamkin, Sharish Binyan, Kalkus, the Aces, Amachov, Messinas, Egwurz, Manaspach, Hulu, Maila, Gama, Machova, Asmis, Machova, Akdul, Machova, Timada, Ak, Arif, Ad Machova, Dizol, Derech, Hanal, Vipratis, Inyam, Adam, Atachtan, Bishar, Sharish, Itchalkas HaTzirufim Bayim Milemayla Mimkoira Asaga Debina Asma Fubu. Zeu Inyan Maimer Sosu Maimer Pasua. Mo Vayomer Elokim. Elokim is Kuf Chav Tzirufim the Machshavas Timash Ba'atmos Mamish. Elokim, you can put Elokim together 120 different ways. And there's like, it goes, 72 and 48. The Machshavas Timash Ba'atmos Mamish. Nikra Maimer Sosum Ba'atmos Stimer Kol Stimen Chulu. Had Ruma Mailus. Moy Elokim having darker. So when it says Vayomer Elokim, it's talking about the Elokim in the Atmos. It comes from there. The Yom Elokim that it comes later down from Atzilus Abriya really starts higher. Ukmoi Chulu, Upinas Elokim Azeh, Hu Pinas Atzimtzum Vaisalkus. That's what Elokim means. Kamama Azal Batila Alav Machshava Liver of Midas Adin, Hu Shem Elokim. V'ainu Pinas Histalkus Tirufa Eisi Shemachshava Histalkus Tirufa Eisi Shemachshava Timag. Was it Gamkin?
Gamkin, yeah.
More Lafi Targum Onkelos Bereshis Bekadmin. Who Arotz Nakodum Hainu Arotzen Shemachshava Akdum Achulu. Nikra Pinas Elokim Bepinas Hatzimtzum Vayitchalkus Lafi Maimers Zal, the Bereshis Nami Maimerhu. That the Bereshis itself is also a Maimer. Hu Pinas Maimer Sosum Machshava Astuma. Ad Gam Pinas Machshava Apshuta Va'asmis Kanal. And it really, the Machshava Astuma is a symptom of the Machshava Apshuta actually. That Yadua, the Elokim Eisius Mi Eleh. So who Pinas Itchalkus Mi Bara Ele? Who created these? Like it says, lift up your eyes and see who created these. Elokim Ila'a Bina Umachshava Sema Da'arech Anpin Ve'ak Chulu. Elokim Tatav Pinas Malchus Etvuna. The layout. The commercial Wabazar. The Lamed Beis Vayomer Elokim, and it says Vayomer Elokim 32 times, and Lamed Vez Shvilin, the mitzvot in the Bebina. The Kulam Bepinas Maimer Sosum, the Dibush of Machshava. That all of these are in a way of a Maimer Sosum. Shemizen Nice and Machshava Shebedibur, from the Dibush of Machshava becomes the Machshava Shebedibur, the Malchus of Malchus. Nikra Maimer Pasuach. So in other words, the Machshava is called the Maimer Sosum, and the Dibur is called the Maimer Pasuach. So, Mashit Barbe Inyan Pinat Mem Suma Mem Psuchachulu. This will be explained more later. So Abnam Hine Sheresh Pinas is Halkus Hazais. So really, he was just setting up stuff for a later explanation here. But now he's getting to the actual thing of the chapter. Is that even though it's from the Chalkus, but the shayrish of this Kayachai Chalkus Hazais, Aval Pishu Ba Bepinas Hatzimtzum, Hine Hu Milamayla Mikrach Makor Etzem Asaga. It really comes from higher than Bina. Question Vur Bazal Pasuk Kol HaTorah Nishma Ba'atzeinu Chulu. So Pinas Koil the Bina Shanishma Bepinas is Halko Tirufim Al Yidei Pinas Heig Vurs Maspach Chulu. That in other words that the like we said before, that the voice of Zoh is heard in the Dibur through the coil itself. But then it says there's a kol pnima the lo mishtama. There's an inner voice that's not heard, and that's the voice of Bina is not heard actually in the voice. But where is it heard? It's heard in the division of the letters in the speech.
Yeah.
In other words, in the division of letter of the speech, that's where you hear the Bina. And that's why, like a dog has the emotion you can hear, but Bina, he doesn't, the voice of Bina he can't bring into the speech.
Right.
Why? Because that comes in the Hitchalkus Tirufei of the Oisius through the Hegvus Matzpah. What does that mean? That's when the light of the Bina, the light of the Seichel, comes into revelation in the Dibur, which is called Almadid Galia, Shenikra Artseinu. And now, the Kanal Barichus, Memashal Atinok, She'en Lo Machshava, Beitchalkus Oisius, Ki'im Kshiyedaber, Davka when he can speak, then his machshava can have it Chalkos Oisius. Right. Because Davka when there is a Metzaref to the Dibur from the Chochma, Mepchinas Pnimius Chochma, Az Yesh Metzaref Loisius the machshava Mepnimius the Mokha Bina. In other words, it's Davka when the Dibur has a Metzaref, a unification. From the Pnimius Chochma means from the Koyach HaMaskil, like the Mazla Elyon light. That's when the Machshava has and you notice, like sometimes he says a Tziruf. What do you mean a Tziruf? He should be saying a Chiluk.
Right.
It seems like he's mixing up, like he says Tziruf Chiluki Oisius. So what do you mean Tziruf Chiluki Oisius? Tziruf right. Means the joining, and Chiluk means
two opposites.
Two opposites. But the thing is that the chiluk comes davka from the tiruf. In other words, the way that the bina works is davka when you have the tiruf of the dibur from the chochma. That if you look, you have to look at this. How you talk. When you talk, it's not like when you think. When you're just thinking and you're not trying to talk, what you're basically trying to do, even though you're looking at the pnimius of the chokhmah, means you're looking at the nakuda, but the main the main effort is to try to divide it up, to analyze it.
Right.
You're trying to analyze it into little pieces. When you're thinking about something, when you're thinking like you're trying to figure something out, you basically, your main, the main thing that you're trying to do in thinking is to break it up.
Right.
Okay, now when you're talking, it's not really like that. If you look closely, you have to look very closely because it's hard to see. Because when you're talking,
you're putting it together.
You're just doing talking. But when you're talking, the main thing that you're trying to do is not so much to analyze it, because
that has been done.
It had to have been already analyzed. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to talk.
Exactly.
In other words, you can't talk about something that you didn't already think about.
Right.
Like you can't talk about something that you totally didn't think about at all.
Right.
In other words, that you're doing the analysis right now while you're talking.
Right.
Because when you're thinking, you can't talk.
Right.
It's a known thing. When you're mamish thinking deeply, in other words, when you're actually doing thinking of Ian, you can't talk. Like you see a guy like, the absent-minded professor, you try to talk to him, he can't talk.
Right.
Not only that, when he's really thinking, you see that when he's really thinking, then, his wife gets mad, how come he's not talking to her? But that's because he's thinking.
Right.
So when he's thinking, he can't talk. Why? Because he has to do two things. But the main thing, there's two things. There's no Chokhmah without Bina, there's no Bina without Chokhmah. So when he's thinking, if he loses sight of the point of the Chokhmah, he won't be able to think anymore.
Right.
But the main thing he's trying to do is the division of Bina.
Right.
Because thought comes from Bina.
Right.
But when he's talking,
the other way around.
It's the other way around. The analysis of Bina had to have been done already earlier. That's why, like, for instance, like, when somebody gives a speech, they have to prepare ahead of time for the speech, or else, like you say, some people can give a speech like, at the drop of a hat. They can just give a speech, like spontaneously almost, but it still really was prepared for, because they're giving a speech on subjects that they already know very well, or else this is a speech like by some of these people, that go from town to town, and give speeches. They probably gave the speech already 25 times, right? Or else it's a subject that they really know. About a subject that they totally don't know, and they have to think, they won't be able to give a speech. So the Hitbonenut had to have been done ahead of time in order to talk. And you see that when a person is talking, it's not that he's trying to analyze the ideas into their separations. He already has them in separations.
Right. He's trying to put it together.
He's trying to put it together into a coherent speech.
Right.
So why? Because the dibur comes from Chokhmah. The main thing of dibur is to put it together, to put the divisions together into the coherent thing. But nonetheless, it's dafka the koyach hamitzaref that gives power to the koyach hamachalik. In other words, if you wouldn't have the koyach hamitzaref, you wouldn't really have the koyach hamachalik. Not only
even
that,
when you think.
Even when you think. Not only that, even the koyach hamachalik has to work together with the koyach hamitzaref, because otherwise it's just like breaking. It's not like really analysis.
Right.
In other words, analysis means when people go to the army and they make you take the gun apart.
Right.
That's analysis. So you'll see all the little pieces. But the thing is that the real analysis is not just to take the gun apart.
To put it back together.
It's to take the gun apart with a point of view of seeing how the pieces fit together. That's really analysis.
Right, that's what it's for. It's for
analysis,
taking it apart in order to put it together.
In order to put it together, like to take a clock apart in order to put it together again. That's really analysis.
Right, that's why when you take it apart, when they take these guns apart or a clock apart, they put all the pieces in order and,
Right, and that analysis is also, right, it's not like just to throw it all over the place.
Right.
You take it, you put this one, okay, this one goes here, and this one goes here. It's like, you take them apart categorically, and you categorize them, like 1A, 1B, 1C, like you break up the idea, okay, 1A, 1B, 1C, you break up the idea like that, like taking a gun apart,
Right.
But to just take it apart without having the mitzaref, that's breaking. That's not
right.
That's not analysis. That's just plain old Toyu. That's just you take it and you break it apart. You blow it up.
Right.
Like in other words, if you're just gonna knock a building down, then you don't have to worry which piece is which.
Right.
Because you're not going to put it back together again. So you just take a big ball and you knock it down, and you don't care what goes where. You just take a bomb and blow it up.
Right, but on the other hand, if you mean to reconstruct it, then you have to keep track of where everything is.
Right, like, people build a sukkah the first year, and then when they take it apart, they mark,
Right, they mark the pieces where they go.
The pieces where they go. Like they mark on one side and on the other side, this is 1A and this is 1A.
Yeah. Right. They moved the whole London Bridge to Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Right. So when Texas bought London Bridge, and they moved it to Austin, and they reconstructed it.
Right. So
when they took it apart, they had to know exactly each stone where it fits with all the other stones.
Right, so they have to mark it.
Right.
And that's analysis. Otherwise, they could just take it and put a bomb on it and blow it up.
Right.
And, nobody cares how it goes back together again. But that's called destruction. That's not called analysis. So the same thing with the power to break up the Nekuda of Chokhmah into subdivisions of ideas, and those into further subdivisions, all the way to the paragraphs and the sentences and the words and the letters.
Right.
It has to be done dafka with a mind for the tiruf. That's why I call it the tiruf chilukei oisius, which sounds kind of weird. What do you mean the tiruf chilukei oisius?
Right.
The tiruf means the connection, and the chiluk means the division.
Right.
Why? Because the analysis of Hitbonenut has to be done dafka in a way of to put it back together again. Otherwise, it's not an analysis; it's just a destruction.
Right.
Okay, so where are we? Yeah. So the bisman sheyesh mitzaref l'dibur mechokma b'pchinas pnimius chokma, az yesh mitzaref l'oisius mechshava b'pnimius mekod bina. And that's why he says mitzaref, not mechalik. It should be mechalik. Right?
Right.
But the thing is, it's not enough to have a mechalik. You have to have a mitzaref.
Right.
V'davka koyach ha'oisi ha'tziruf hu mepchinas moker debina. אבל גוף הצירופים בפרט או לפניהם, הרי הוא דווקא מקוון על פי הכוונה שבהסוגה בפרט, על פי צמצום דמחשבת שכל העיונית. Meaning of the divided צירופים. שמסדר איפן הצירופים, פולו, canal. In other words, it categorizes the divisions, how they go back together again. That's the whole engine of analysis. But really, even though, like before, we said that the bina is a mem stuma and the dibur is a mem psucha, he says, but really, this is also in the mem stuma of bina, this is really the mem psucha. Kihina bina atzma yesh mem stuma mem psucha. Shenikra maimer sosu maimer pasuah. He called Maimer hu machshava de bina atzma. Really, Maimer does not mean speech. It's dafka machshava. Maimer. Hu inyan ha'hefresh ben pchinas makifin de ima, shehu adayim bepchinas mem stima, stuma, shemakif mikol saad, v'hu beribu adafka, kmo shemavua bezor al mem do amar be'hamisra. Hulu. That they use and the mem in the middle of the letter, in the middle of the word.
Right, right.
וכמובן במקום אחר, ובין בחינת הערב המקיף הזה לעשות ישחלקוס הצירופים על ידי בחינת גבורס מן הטפחול, שהוא עניין מם פסוחה, מים הפסוח, means between the makifin of bina, the makifin of bina are square meaning that they sit on the brain. They're not far away. There are two things in square. One is that it sits right on the brain. That the makifin of bina, in other words, makifin of bina is basically the Indian of what you're thinking about.
Right.
And that's a mem stuma. In other words, what you're thinking about, in bina there's two inyanim. There's a part that you're understanding, and the part that you're actually thinking about means that you don't understand. It's only a makif on the bina. Right now it's a makif on the bina. But it's not a round makif, it's a square makif. Square makif means two things. One is that it's sitting like an emra vetzes.
Right.
That it's sitting right on the brain, not like a far makif. Like a round makif means that it's totally equidistant from the brain, and your brain doesn't reach it at any point at all.
Right.
It just sees it from far away. Square makif means that it's sitting mamish on the brain. It's mamish like you're almost reaching it.
Right.
That's one thing with a square makif. Another thing with a square makif is that it's not equidistant.
Right, it has corners.
It has corners. Like if you look up at the ceiling, you'll see that there's a part of the ceiling that's on top of you is closer to you than the part of the ceiling that is at the end of the room. It's closer to you.
Right.
And especially if you would be in a room where the ceiling would fit right on your head. So a part of it would actually touch your head, and the other part would be farther away. And that's the thing of the Makif and the Bina. When you're understanding something, there's a certain part of it that's actually sitting right on your head and going into your brain. And a certain part of it is farther away, and a certain part of it is even farther away.
Right.
And that's why it's called, like an endamem is square. Because the Makif and the Bina are square. So in the Bina itself, there's two mems. There's the open mem, which means the Maimer Pasuach, which you can already say, that's actually in your Machshava already, and you can actually think it, and therefore you can say it. And then there's the part, and that's the whole thing of Bina. If you're thinking about it, it means there's something you don't understand. Right. Otherwise, it wouldn't be Bina, it would be knowledge. You would know it.
Right.
You wouldn't have to analyze it. Why would you be analyzing it?
Right.
I mean, why would you be thinking about it in the first place? If you know the whole thing, so you wouldn't have to think about it. It means that there's a part that you don't know, the makifin. It's makif on your brain. It's in a way of a makif, which means that it's not totally has nothing to do with your brain, because if it had nothing to do with your brain altogether, you If it would have totally nothing to do with your brain, you wouldn't think about it. It means it's a makif already. You know it's there, you just don't know what it is yet. And even what you don't know what it is a part of it that you sort of almost are getting, and another part that's even farther away.
Right.
And then there's a part that's mom is sitting right on your brain ready to go into it. Lubavitch Dr. Moshe Rabbi Zal Mendel Marba Mitzvah Vua B'Moka Mocha Ben Pina Sieras Hamakif Azeh Lasas Is Chalkuf Atzirufin Al Yedei Pina Teig Vuris Minatzpach Pulu Shu Inyan Men Pesucha Maimer Pesuach Shamachshova Hastuma Nases Pesucha B'Itchalkus Oisius, that the Machshova Stuma becomes open Machshova when you can divide it into letters. Through this division of the analysis, you make from Machshava Stuma to Machshava Psucha. Shezeu Inyan Sira Mem Psucha Kedua. It has a mouth.
Right.
Uvir Advarim Hini Adua. And now he's going to explain a little bit better. The Bir Inyan Makif and the Bina, the Inyan Va'em Ravetzis Allah Efraitim. So now he's talking about something else, though. In the Inyan of Makifin of Bina, there's two inyanim. There's the Makifin of the Bina itself, means the part of the Bina that's Makif on the Bina that's not understood yet. Then there's the thing of the Bina as Makif on the Midos. And that's really the or pnimi of Bina, what is called the Maimer Pesuach, in regards to the Maimer Sosim of Bina. That's called the Makifin in regards to the Midos. Shenikus Emabonim, She'az Nikroy Mefreichem Pulu. Upinas Gadlus HaMeichin the Midos, Behelem, Haba Mikoyach Makifin.
Miphinat Makifin.
Miphinat Makifin. That means Dafka when the Bina is sitting on top of it. In other words, to bring down from even higher than the Moichin of Bina, to bring it down into the Midos. So in other words, the Bina is not so much that it has its own thing, but really the thing of the Bina is that it brings down stuff from higher than the Bina into the Midos. Al derech ahava atluya b'davar, שדובר זה בא באהבה בבחינת אור פנימי. על כן, כשבוטל דובר, בטל אהבה. Where the thing goes away, the love also goes away. מכל מוקם נשאר בבחינת מקיף, שהוא בבחינת אלם אויס הדובר, שיוכל על ידי זה לחזור ולהתעורר ולא בבחינת אור פנימי כידוע. So in other words, but it's nonetheless, even when the dover is bottle and the ava is betela, but still there's a makif of it left over so that the next time that this thing will come up, it'll be easier to love it. Doesn't take the same amount of time. What I'm talking about, the second time it's faster.
Yeah.
Why? Because it was already there in a way of a makif. Shechayfif aleim v'hu beribua, and it's over them, but it's in a square way. Shemityashiv aleim mamish, his mamish sits on them. Morshem vor b'makamacha b'inyan mem delamar b'chulu. Beklalus ha'inyan hu al derech dugma miyadia b'mayach shemakefis is adavar shiadea eisi. והגם שהדובר נבדל מכל מוקם חויפף ידיע זו ומקפס מכל צד לא יישא הדובר. This yediah actually surrounds it from every place. כמו ידיע של לקות שמשגיח וידע את כל הנברואים שבידיע זו מקיף איסם כמו שמבואר בלקוטי המורם בידיע שיודע כל הארץ כולו. So with this yediyah that he knows something, this yediyah is makif the thing from all sides. But its mamish sits on top of it, not far away. The bina. His mamish sits on their head. So who pinas makif the bina, gamkin. שמזה נעשה לבוש החשמל מבחינת חיצוניוס בינה כמו שהתברר. This will be explained later. כמו שמבוא במקום אחר בביר עניין אור מים רקיע, והסוגה דבינה נקרא רקיע, לפי שקודם שבא המוסקל מבחינת הסוגה גמורה עדיין, ולמעלה מבחינת הגבלת אייסיוס. In other words, before it comes into the actual הסוגה of Bina, it's a makif on the bina. These are the makifin of the bina. כמו הסבר מושכל עמוק שאינו עדיין באופן מוגבל במוח, הנקרא הסוגה ותפיסה, הוא הנקרא מים דניידי. Then it's called water.
Flowing water.
That flows. Lova בכמה אבנים שיינים חולו. Then it can come, he could really understand it in various different ways. Once he understands it in a certain way, and he has a certain asaga into it, then he understands it in this particular way. And it is mugbal and nitfas mamish in his brain. Nimshach lekerach da'aglid demaya. Then it is nimshal to ice that the water freezes and takes on a shape now. The water cannot flow. It's in this way, and that's the way it is, the kaima, and then it has to be like this. Miloshin heseg yad, the reach of your hand. Asaga comes in the lotion of reach. And then it's called the rakia. Rakia means it's fixed. Who inyan a kerach, and that's why it's also called kerach al gabe hamoich in the chayus chulu. Because now it's in a particular way, and that's the way it is. Once it's in an explanation, that's how the explanation is. V'amnam shirish hakerach hazeh sheba davka b'pchinas hakshama gemura. However, the shirish of this kerach, it comes dafka in a way of a hakshama gemura, the explanation. So the explanation, the whole thing of the explanation is that it comes in a hakshama. That's why you can understand it. It's really from higher than the actual or pnimi of Bina itself, meaning the Hitbonenut. Hello, nimshaf and nasu and pinas hamakif the Bina nikra mem stuma. Shabilti ma'ev and nimshaf begilu klal b'moyach.
Midos, it says here.
Bamidos, yeah. The makif of Bina, which is the actual. In other words, what he's saying is that the source of being able to put it into an explanation and a mashal, into Hakshama, is higher than the actual power of analysis that looks over the mashal. In other words, that works with the letters of the explanations to understand them. But the actual power of the Hakshama is higher than the actual power of the Bina itself, and it comes from the Mazolas, all the way from the source of Chokhmah. And by the way, this whole business is it's a thing of several chapters here. Al ken misham nasa pchinas rakia kera. Al gabi hamayich in the midah is full. And this is also the source of the chashmal, which really comes from higher. In other words, it's the source of the letters, the fact that it can go into hakshama of letters and ideas, and that's the whole inyan of the last 2 or 3 chapters already, and the next 3 chapters, is that this source of the letters is really higher. The fact that it can put it into letters and into mashalim, in other words, that the ideas are put into words in a way of akshama. It really comes from higher than the actual power of the Hitbonenut of the Bina itself. That
goes all the way to the etzem, which is
right.
The source of the description and definition. That in the etzem is the letters.
Right, and that's what I was saying before, that it goes all the way to the Elokim and Atmon.
Right.
The mother sits on the midah. The ken al gozal of Yerachim. Shezeo pchinas lavush hachashmal shemeki bepchinas shomer lamidas, and that's the lavush hachashmal that's always makif in a way of a shomer lamidos. In the thing that the midos have a lavush hachashmal that comes really from higher than Bina. And that's why the midos don't disappear when you stop thinking. Otherwise, if it would be just because the midos come from Bina. So the minute you stop doing the Hitbonenut, they would just disappear. Why don't they disappear? Because of the Chashmal. The letters that they're made up from have a higher source than the Bina. And that's why the midah stays there without the Bina. Moshi ba besamoch beinin kosmos or chulu shemakif lezun ad mitachus lebag lezun shemena nasa masach sheben atzilus ebriachulu. And this is the kotnos or the clothings that are makif on the midos all the way to the bottom underneath the feet of zun. And from this lavush chashmal becomes a masach between atzilus and briachulu. And this hashmal, which goes all the way down to become the letters of the midos, really is the moker of Bina. The source of the letters is higher than Bina, all the way to the moker of Bina. Not the actual body of the separations of the letters, but the real source of where the Hakshama and the actual tzil for the whole idea comes from is really higher. So in other words, the letters, even the letters that come outside of Bina, all the way to the letters of Chashmal, which the letters of Chashmal are levushim, not kalim anymore, really have a higher source And by the way, this is also, if you look in Shaar HaYichud, that's the problem with doing tshuva, that he can fix up the midos, and he can fix up the moichin, and he can fix up the ratzon, but the letters are still there.
Right.
Because the letters, even though they're totally external letters, but their source is in the etzem of the soul. And that's basically here he's saying that the Maimer Pasuach Habina is the actual thought where he's thinking out the analysis. But really behind it is a Maimer Sasum, which is what he's thinking about.
Right.
Tadayla Maven. And this is now we're getting into the real nitty-gritty of the whole thing, of the Levush Chashmal. Which the Levush Chashmal is the main thing that you need in order to understand the whole inyan of B'chudas HaTorah.
Right.
We could say that about every chapter.
Which is the inyan of the Levushim, yeah, but this is the main inyan of the Levushim.
Right.
The whole thing, like he said before, that Machshava Dibur Maisa is Biyah.
Right.
Which that's the inyan of Yehuda HaTorah. And the main thing of Machshava Dibur Maisa is the inyan of the Oisius. The Machshava Dibur Maisa, the main thing of even Machshava, the Machshava of Machshava Dibur Maisa doesn't mean the actual inner thought of the intellect. It means the letters.
Right.
Meaning letters that are just letters by themselves. Disconnected, not connected. The Biyah means Alma de Pruda.
Right.
They're separate worlds. So, and this is the real thing in terms of the Yichud of the Eibishter is not so much the inyan of the Yichud HaEloah, but the dafka the inyan of Yichud HaTorah. The inyan of Yichud HaEloah, what's the big deal? It's the connected worlds.
Right.
Right.
The thing is to see how is it connected even in the separate world. Where it's not Kalim, it's Lavushim.
Right.
It's something different. It's a different thing.
Dover Nivdol.
It's a Dover Nivdol, right. In other words, all the way down to here in this world where you see it's a whole Dover Nivdol, that's the main place. That's the big chachma to see the Yichud of the Eibishter. Okay, good.